attacking this dude, and he just parried it so expertly, like freaking Muhammad Ali. You know what I mean? He just bobbed and weaved. It was so eloquent and gracious. You know, like, and I think that's something that a lot of us are missing on the left is grace. You know, like this guy was so gracious. It just really spoke to me, and I think it's something, and I think it's a perfect encapsulation of the type of stuff that Mike was on and what Mike was about, and that's why when you asked me, Sam, for if I wanted to redo a clip, this one immediately came to mind.
All right, let's play this clip.
Hi.
Hi.
So my first question, it says on your Twitter that you're Jewish. Am I getting this right?
No.
Is it the right Twitter?
On my Twitter bio, it says I'm Jewish.
No, but like in your tweets. I don't want to be wrong.
I have Jewish background. I'm just
Okay.
trying to think of.
Okay, so as someone with a Jewish background,
Yes.
how do you feel about Bernie's plan for Israel, especially as someone concerned with foreign policy?
I love it. It's absolutely necessary. My Jewish values teach me to oppose apartheid.
Okay. Could you elaborate, please?
I mean, there really isn't that much to elaborate on. I mean, has anybody ever been not only to Israel but also to the? Have you been to the West Bank? Have you been to Gaza? You went to Gaza. Oh, okay, but not to Gaza. Well, I know people who've gone to Gaza. You could definitely go to Gaza. So for me, my politics are built on a base of, economic justice and actually really like anti-racism, as in some ways as distinct from some of this sort of woke stuff in a way. But when I grew up, I was pretty connected to left politics, so I always knew growing up about the travesty that was the human rights situation. And I knew that people I admired, like Nelson Mandela, said, South Africa is going to not be properly free until the Palestinians are free. In 2006, I believe, I read a piece by a guy named Tony Judt in the New York Review of Books, who was a really important Jewish scholar. And he just said, the argument was that, literally this is childish. Like, the idea that you have an ethno-state or a religious state, if you're committed to any type of broad-based social, economic equity and civil society, it doesn't work. No matter how justified, right? Of course there's justification because of Jewish history for Israel. There's justification for Kurdistan because of Kurdish reality. There's justification for Pakistan. It's notable that Israel and Pakistan are both disasters. Israel not in the sense of, look, if you're a European Jewish background, you have a nice life there. If you're not, you are, even inside 67 borders, not a fully equal citizen. And the situation in the West Bank is, it is literally Jim Crow-like, and Gaza is, it's just an atrocity. So that's not something that anybody can reasonably ask me to support. And I understand, there's some actions from some Palestinian groups that, we can condemn. In fact, those have not even really been in any way seriously in play since 2003. And when we talk about, look, and the apartheid word specifically is both used by people who were crucial in ending apartheid in South Africa, like Desmond Tutu or Ronnie Kasrils, who served as intelligence minister under Mbeki, who I've interviewed. And the other main people who use the apartheid word are Ehud Olmert and Ehud Barak. So it is what it is. And I don't support second-class citizenship and occupation and sieges for anybody, no matter who they are.
Are you not concerned about the binary between either condemning Israel entirely, being also a stance that a lot of very strong and notorious anti-Semitic people agree with, versus seeing this as more of a complex issue where it is wrong what's going on, and there's also a way to do this that Israel still exists and is supported?
So,
Or is
so it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open-air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus, they killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic-Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship, and the question is rights or not. So that's it, it's not complicated. The second part of your question, at this point, there's always going to be crackpots who are anti-Semitic who condemn Israel. That's not what drives the movement, it's particularly in the United States. If you work around most people who are concerned with this issue, it's actually populated with a lot of Jewish people. The real question we have to ask is why is it that AIPAC is hosting an information minister for Slobodan Milosevic? Why is it that there's relationships between the Israeli government and far-right parties in Europe? Why is it that Benjamin Netanyahu's son is posting borderline alt-right memes? Why is it that Israel is an alt-right state, even though it is from the descendants of the victims of one of the greatest crimes in history? That's a serious question, and that's inseparable from the racism of the project, which goes back to the first part that we have to solve. But thank you. Shalom.
That's a great clip.
I mean, like, that went viral because this was in the midst of, that went last year, right? The latest brutality in Palestine. And I think it went viral because, like, Gigi Hadid Bella Hadid shared it. They're of Palestinian descent. They're, like, one of the top 3 models in the world. And it was just surreal to see that happen.
That, by the way. That would have made
Oh yeah, that would have been up there with Lula.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great clip. I mean, sadly, it's probably going to be evergreen for many years to come. But it's a great clip that can speak, and I think this is part of your point, was, is that it can speak across the board, regardless of where one is situated. It wouldn't speak to, frankly, the Christian Zionists, and I think, like, Michael was clearly on to let you know Netanyahu now, I think they're reporting, and I don't know if he said it himself, but certainly they're reporting that Netanyahu really does see support in the United States amongst Republicans and particularly Christian Zionists. But there's a whole sea of people between the Christian Zionist, the Christian right in this country, whose support of Israel has to do with, the return of Jesus and sending some of us into eternal hellfire.
He's gonna return, Sam. You didn't know that?
Well, I'm concerned.
He's coming back for the sequel.
I know. I understand. And 2/3 of us go into eternal hellfire, and I can't do that because of my eczema. But there's a whole sea of people from those people who, I could send that to my aunt, with all due respect to my aunt, who is, probably not unlike of the disposition of that kid who asked the question. But then there's a whole sea of people that clip can work with, and that was, one of the things that Michael was really adept at is being able to address, like you say, address that person without them feeling like they're being attacked, and just sort of like, you've got no toehold in my approach to you. You're just going to have to deal with sort of the reality that I'm presenting.